When you're misunderstood, the instinct is to explain yourself. That instinct is what damages your tone. In this episode, we walk through how to interrupt that moment early so you can stay steady without letting things slide. You're in the middle of a meeting on Zoom, camera on, and you say one sentence, one normal sentence, and you can feel it happen. The pause. The sideways look. Someone clears their throat like you just crossed a line you didn't even see. And instead of staying steady, you start doing that thing you hate admitting you do. You over-explain with a tight voice, trying to force people to understand you. Here's the interruption you can use today, word for word. Let me restate that in one sentence, calmly. Say it exactly like that. Then stop talking for one full breath. In the next 10 minutes, that single sentence buys you space. It signals control without aggression. It keeps you from stacking explanations like bricks until you're buried under them. And even if they still don't get you right away, you are no longer chasing them with your nervous system. Educational content inspired by classical Stoic texts. Not medical, psychological, financial, or legal advice. This won't rush you, but it will keep you from spiraling. Because being misunderstood doesn't just sting. It triggers something primal, the need to correct the record right now, the fear that silence means guilt, the feeling that if you don't fix this immediately, your reputation is going to calcify into something you never intended. And when you move from calm to urgent, people don't hear your logic, they hear your emotion. At work, that can quietly cost you trust and opportunities. At home, it can turn a normal disagreement into a cold, exhausting night where nobody feels safe. What you're building here isn't perfect composure forever. It's earlier control, catching yourself sooner, keeping your tone stable while you clarify your point, preventing the kind of reputation damage that happens when you sound defensive, and staying grounded even when someone is committed to reading you wrong. If this kind of practical control is useful to you, staying subscribed keeps these tools in your pocket when the next situation hits. If you want more lessons like this, subscribe now. First, you'll learn how to stop chasing understanding and start guiding it. Next, you'll get a way to correct the story about you without sounding sharp or needy. Then you'll practice a pressure-proof response that holds up when someone is openly unfair. Finally, you'll run it all through one real situation so it feels usable, not theoretical. And later, I'm going to bring you into a moment that's harder than a meeting or a text thread, when someone misreads you in front of other people and you can feel your status slipping. You'll see exactly how to stay steady without letting it slide. You're standing in line at a coffee shop in Chicago, it's morning, and the barista says, "So you want the usual," in a tone that implies they know you, and you don't know them. Two people behind you laugh softly like you're some regular who thinks he owns the place. You smile, but your chest tightens. You can feel the heat of being misread, arrogant, familiar, entitled. And the urge shows up instantly, correct it, fast. Make it clear you're not that guy. Here's the microscript. Keep it simple, keep it clean, and keep it human. I might have come across wrong. What I meant was this. That's it. One bridge sentence. Then your actual point, one sentence. Why this works is physical, not fancy. When you're misunderstood, your body interprets it as a threat. Your voice speeds up, your words multiply, and your face tightens. People don't evaluate your argument in that state, they evaluate your stability. The microscript does two things at once, it lowers the temperature, and it gives their brain a new track to follow. It also prevents the most common trap, trying to prove you're right. When you try to prove you're right, you sound like you're fighting for your image. When you clarify what you meant, you sound like you're managing the conversation. Now a North American friction example where this matters. You're on Slack at work, and you type, "Let's not overcomplicate this." You mean, let's keep it practical. But someone reads it as, "You're dismissing my effort." Within minutes, you get a reply, "Not sure what you mean by that." That sentence is a small dagger because it's not really a question, it's a public flag. And your impulse is to write a paragraph, intent, background, tone explanations, and a subtle attack disguised as a clarification. Instead, you pause. One breath. Then you type, "I might have come across wrong." What I meant was, let's pick the simplest option we can test today. Then you stop. No second paragraph. No defensive footnotes. No, as I said earlier. Tiny action you can measure today. The next time you feel misunderstood, limit yourself to 2 sentences total. Sentence 1 is the bridge. I might have come across wrong. What I meant was this. Sentence 2 is the clarified meaning. If you can't clarify it in one sentence, you don't fully know what you meant yet, or you're still trying to win. Now a slow practice moment, brief but real. Think of a recent misunderstanding, something small, not traumatic. Maybe a coworker said you sounded short. Maybe your partner said you were cold. Don't argue with it. Don't explain it. Just rehearse the 2 sentences out loud, calmly, like you're practicing a golf swing. I might have come across something wrong. What I meant was this. Then 1 sentence of meaning. Do it 3 times. You're not practicing the words. You're practicing the nervous system underneath them. And here's the forward pull, why this matters later. When the misunderstanding happens in front of other people, you won't have time to craft a perfect defense. You'll need a bridge that keeps your tone stable and protects your reputation without making you look desperate. This is that bridge. Let's go tense right away. You're at home, end of the day, and your partner says, "Wow, it must be nice to just disappear into work again." You freeze because you weren't disappearing. You were handling something urgent. But the sentence lands like an accusation, selfish, absent, uncaring. And the old move rises up, fast defense. You start listing everything you did today. You start building a case. You start trying to be understood through evidence. That's the mistake. When you're misunderstood, you try to litigate your character. And the moment you litigate your character, you stop sounding like a steady person and start sounding like a suspect. Even if you're innocent, the energy changes. The conversation becomes a trial, and trials don't produce closeness. They produce winners and losers. Here's the correction. It's a rule and a script, because you need both. Rule, don't defend your identity. Clarify your intention. Script, I hear how that looked. My intention was ____. Say it slowly. Not as a trick. Not as a performance. As a decision to steer the moment back to reality. Why it works, the misunderstanding is usually happening on 2 levels. There's the surface content, you disappeared, and there's the emotional claim underneath it, I'm not important right now. When you argue the surface content, you skip the emotional claim, and the other person gets louder to force you to address what you ignored. When you start with "I hear how that looked," you're acknowledging the experience without admitting guilt for something you didn't intend. Then "my intention was ____ anchors you in what you control, your purpose, without begging them to approve of you. Tiny action today, practice the blank. Your brain hates blanks because blanks feel like vulnerability. But the blank is where power is. Fill it with something clean. My intention was to handle the urgent message so I could be present after. My intention was to keep it practical, not dismiss your work. My intention was to set a boundary, not punish you. You're not justifying. You're clarifying. Now add a pattern interrupt, one question that stops the escalation and forces a shared frame. After you say the script, ask, "Do you want my intention, or do you want a different impact next time?" This question is calm and specific. It refuses the courtroom. It moves the conversation into solutions. Here's a North American example with friction, workplace version. You're in a meeting in Dallas. Your manager says, "You seem resistant to feedback." That phrase can blow up your week if you respond wrong. The old you says, "I'm not resistant. I'm actually very open to feedback. I've always been," and now you're defending your identity. Your voice tightens. You're proving. You're pushing. Try the new approach. "I hear how that looks. My intention was to understand the reasoning before I commit. Do you want my intention, or do you want a different impact next time?" Notice what happens. You don't sound weak. You sound organized. You sound like someone who can handle heat without spilling it everywhere. Slow practice moment. Take 10 seconds right now and relax your jaw. Most defensiveness lives in your jaw and tongue. Then say the script at half speed. I hear how that looked. One breath. My intention was underscore. One breath. Then the question. Do you want my intention, or do you want a different impact next time? Half speed is not softness. Half speed is controlled. Marcus Aurelius wrote about keeping the ruling faculty steady, what you might call the steering wheel of your mind. Half speed keeps your hands on the wheel. Forward pull. Why this matters later. When someone misunderstands you publicly, your reputation is threatened. If you defend your identity, you look insecure. If you clarify intention and move toward impact, you look grounded. And grounded people keep their standing even under unfair readings. Here's a false belief that quietly ruins you. If I don't correct this immediately, it becomes true. That belief feels practical, but it's actually panic wearing a suit. It makes you chase every misreading like it's a fire you must stamp out right now. And the result is not respect. The result is tension. People start feeling like they have to handle you carefully, like you're always one misunderstanding away from an emotional burst. Epictetus had this harsh, useful idea: you don't control what people say or assume, but you do control what you choose to do with it. If you treat every assumption as an emergency, your life becomes a series of emergencies. Clear instruction with stakes. Stop trying to win the room. Start trying to keep your center. Because your center is the only thing you can actually bring to the next hour, the next day, the next relationship. If you lose your center to correct a misunderstanding, you might win a sentence and lose a reputation. Here's the script for pressure moments. When the misunderstanding is sharp and public, that's not how I see it. Here's what I can say clearly. Then one sentence. Then you stop. This script matters because it prevents two extremes. Extreme 1 is collapsing into people-pleasing. No, I didn't mean it like that. I'm sorry. Please don't think that. Extreme 2 is aggression. That's ridiculous. You're twisting my words. Both extremes make you look unstable. The script is firm without being hostile. It acknowledges the difference without begging. It signals a boundary. I'm not going to fight your interpretation, but I will state my truth calmly. Now put it in a North American pressure example. You're at a family gathering in Toronto. Someone says, loud enough for the room, he always thinks he's smarter than everyone. People laugh. Maybe it's a joke. Maybe it's not. But your body doesn't care. Your body hears the status threat. Your face heats. You want to correct it in a way that humiliates them back. Old reaction: you snap, you lecture, you list your achievements, and you make the air heavy. That is the reputation damage. Not the comment. Your reaction. New response: steady. That's not how I see it. Here's what I can say clearly: I respect everyone here, and I'm not interested in putting anyone down. Then you stop. You take a sip of water. You let the silence do its job. Slow practice moment. This is the durability training. The moment after you speak, your nervous system will beg you to keep talking. It will whisper, add more, explain more, and make sure they understand, clean it up. That's the compulsion. That's where you practice. So you do this: you press your tongue gently to the roof of your mouth for 2 seconds. It's a physical break. Then you inhale through your nose for 4 seconds and exhale for 6. You're not breathing like a ritual. You're doing it like a mechanic. You're lowering RPM so you don't spin out. And now the tease: the vignette you're about to walk into later is the hardest version. You're misunderstood at work, in front of someone whose opinion affects your future, and you can feel yourself being framed as the problem. You'll use the bridge, the intention clarification, and the pressure script. But it won't be clean. The old reaction will almost win. That's the point. This is stress tested, not motivatio. NAL. You're in an office building in Atlanta, late afternoon, glass walls, fluorescent lights that make everyone look slightly exhausted. You're walking into a small conference room for a project debrief. There are 3 people at the table and 1 person on a laptop screen. The person on the screen is a senior. Their influence is real. Their tone decides things. You sit down. You're already a little tense because the project had a messy week. You did your part, but the timeline slipped. You know how these meetings go. Someone needs a story, and stories usually need a villain. The senior person starts, "I'm hearing that you were difficult to work with on this. That you pushed back on everything. It hits you like a slap. Difficult. Pushed back on everything." The words don't just describe behavior, they paint character. You can feel the old reaction ignite, defend identity, list receipts, and expose who really caused the delay. Your heart rate spikes. Your mouth gets dry. The room feels smaller. This is where you usually lose it, not by yelling, but by tightening. Your tone gets sharp. You talk faster. You start sounding like you're fighting for your image. So you catch the first moment. Not the 10th moment. The first. 1 breath. Then you use tool number 1, the bridge from earlier. Calmly, slowly, let me restate that in 1 sentence, calmly. You can feel how strange it is to say that while you're under pressure, like you're stepping into cold water. But you say it anyway. You take the breath you promised yourself you'd take. Then you use the microscript, "I might have come across wrong. What I meant was this." 1 sentence, "I asked for clarity on scope so we didn't commit to something we couldn't deliver." You stop. You don't add a paragraph. The room is quiet for a second. That second matters. It changes the shape of the moment. Instead of a scramble, you've created a controlled pause. But then the old reaction tries to win anyway. Someone at the table says, "It didn't feel like just clarity. It felt like you were shutting ideas down." Here's where your chest tightens again, because that's the deeper accusation. You're not a collaborator, you're a blocker. And the urge is to correct their feelings, to prove they're wrong to feel that way. Instead, you use tool number 2, don't defend identity, clarify intention. You say, "I hear how that looked. My intention was to prevent rework, not shut anyone down." Then the pattern interrupted the question, steady, "Do you want my intention, or do you want a different impact next time?" Now you've moved the conversation from blame to design. You've offered 2 paths, understand what you meant, or create a better outcome next time. Either way, you're not in court anymore. The senior person on the screen leans back. They're listening now, not because you convinced them with facts, but because you didn't react like someone who's guilty or fragile. You didn't beg. You didn't attack. You stayed in the lane. But the pressure isn't done. They say, "Okay, but the perception is that you were combative." Perception matters. There it is. The trap sentence. Perception matters. That line can make you frantic, because it implies you must now manage everyone's minds. And if you accept that burden, you'll start trying to control perception through overperformance and anxiety. You'll start living on a treadmill. So you use tool number 3, the pressure script. Firm, calm, that's not how I see it. Here's what I can say clearly. Then 1 sentence, "I'm committed to clear communication and fast alignment, and I'm open to adjusting how I ask questions so it lands better." You stop again. And this is the slow practice moment inside the meeting, the part that nobody sees but you. Your nervous system is yelling, "Keep talking." So you put your tongue to the roof of your mouth for 2 seconds. You inhale for 4, exhale for 6. You relax your jaw. You let your shoulders drop 1 inch. You do it while they look at their notes. You're not trying to look calm. You're trying to become calm. Someone else speaks. The conversation moves. It's not magically perfect. You can still feel that the difficult label is floating in the room like smoke. You haven't erased it. You haven't won. But you've done something more valuable. You've stopped feeding the fire. After the meeting, you walk back to your desk and you notice something. You're not replaying every sentence with shame. You're not drafting imaginary rebuttals in your head. You're still uncomfortable, because being misunderstood is uncomfortable, but you're steadier, clearer, less scattered. And it's ongoing. You know you'll need to follow up with one person privately. You know you'll need to show alignment through actions, not speeches. But you also know this: you didn't damage your reputation with your reaction. You didn't turn a misunderstanding into a meltdown. You stayed in control early enough to keep the story from swallowing you. Reacting is when a misunderstanding grabs your nervous system and drives you. Responding is when you stay the driver. Reacting scatters you, your words, your tone, your mind. Responding makes you intentional, one sentence, one breath, one choice at a time. First, we stop the spiral immediately with one clean sentence that buys you space. Then we used a bridge that lowers the temperature and lets you clarify without chasing. Next, we corrected the biggest mistake, defending your identity, by naming intention and moving toward impact. Finally, we installed a pressure script that holds up when the misunderstanding is public and unfair, and we saw it all run in a real moment where the old reaction almost won but didn't. Here are 3 do-today steps, specific, measurable, and tied directly to what you just learned. 1. Use the interruption once today. The next time you feel misunderstood, say, "Let me restate that in one sentence," calmly. Then take one full breath. Don't negotiate with the breath. Take it. 2. Limit your clarification to 2 sentences. Sentence 1, "I might have come across wrong. What I meant was this." Sentence 2, "Your meaning in one line." Stop there. If you add a third sentence, you're probably trying to win. 3. Run the intention script in a mirror for 60 seconds. I heard how that looked. My intention was ____. Do you want my intention, or do you want a different impact next time? Say it slowly until your jaw stays loose and your shoulders drop. If you want the next layer after this, it's learning how to handle passive-aggressive misreads. When people don't accuse you directly, they imply it. A good follow-up episode title would be Handling Passive Aggression Without Losing Your Cool. That's the next layer, because passive aggression tempts you to either swallow it and resent, or bite back and look petty, and both options cost you. Subscribe for continued emotional control that actually works in real moments, not just motivation. If you want more lessons like this, subscribe now.